An eye for an eye. The night before Biggie got killed, me and two of my homies, Bubble Up and Uchi, went to the House of Blues on Sunset Boulevard to see our Southside homie, Davey Wavy, who was Mac 10's manager. That night, they were having a posthumous album release party for Eazy-E, who had passed away the year before. Davey Wavy was up in the VIP section and screamed down when he saw us. "Yo, KEEFE D, your boy Puffy up here." We went up in the VIP section and saw Snoop Dogg, Willie McGinnis, and Little Blue. They were all from the 20s, or Insanes, down in Long Beach. Biggie and Puffy had come into town to promote Biggie's new album, Life After Death. Puffy came over. We greeted each other, and he said, "What's up, dog?" "Just chilling." There were too many people inside to talk, and we had a lot we needed to talk about. Puffy told me to meet him the next night at a party they were having at the Peterson Automotive Museum. Once the House of Blues party was over, my homies Bubble Up, Uchi, and I were sitting in front of the venue in a rental car, trying to get some bitches. I was sitting in the passenger seat, and Uchi was in the back. "There that nigga Puffy go right there," one of the homies observed. "Who's that he's walking with? Is that Vivica Fox?" "Yeah, that's her." If it wasn't, it must have been her identical twin. They were all walking out of the House of Blues together. I yelled out, "What's up, homie?" Puffy turned his head in our direction to see who was calling, and when he saw it was me, he strolled over to the car and came up to the window. Puffy's eyes got wide, and his heart had to be racing when he got to the car and saw all three of us sitting in the car with some high-powered straps in our laps. We were strapped up because our hood was at war with each other. It had gotten dangerous in our hood. 5 of the homies had already lost their lives. You could hit the corner and die. It was that thick. Baby Lane had a bullet stuck in his head and got shot with an AK between both knees during that internal neighborhood feud. It hurt me to see us going against each other like that. Puffy was unaware of all the drama that was going on in our neighborhood, so he was visibly shaken by our menacing presence. Puffy still hadn't paid us any money, so it's probable he thought the straps we were carrying was for him. But they weren't. We had them for our own protection. Puffy bent down at the car window and shared the activities they had planned for the next couple of days. "Man, tomorrow afternoon we're giving a basketball game at Cal State Dominguez Hills. I already told you about the party tomorrow night we're giving at the Peterson Automotive Museum. Then we're going to have a picnic at Spelling's daddy house the following day. Y'all need to come through." When he finished, he nervously backed up out of there. He didn't pay attention to the beautiful women he walked out with. He wisely made sure to keep an extremely watchful eye on us. The next day, a few of us showed up to the basketball game at Cal State Dominguez. Puffy was up there with Missy Elliott. We ran into Corrupt and Daz Dillinger from the Dog Pound, and Snoop Dogg was also there. The only one that was acting like he was a super crip, too good to fuck with us, was Daz. When I went to federal prison, Daz made a song that had subliminal messages in it that I didn't like. As luck would have it, my boy Bubble Up and ran into the nigga in Compton at one of my homies' weed spots not long after I got out of the feds. "Nigga, you know who we are?" Nah, he responded. "Nigga, I'm KEEFE D from Southside, nigga." His eyes lit up like silver dollars. He was ready to shit his pants. "What's all that shit you talking? Nigga, you a rapper. You'll get your ass beat the fuck up or hurt real bad talking shit, stupid ass." "Man, I was just brainwashed by SUGE. That's where I was eating. Nigga, you were eating with the wrong people, bitch." He was scared to death, shaking like Don Knotts. I could look into his eyes and tell he wasn't hard. Another case of a rapper who wasn't really about that life, claiming it like he was. After the basketball game, we arranged to meet Zip at the bar next to the rooftop pool of the Hyatt Hotel on Sunset Boulevard. When we arrived, Zip was already up there with Keyshawn Johnson, the wide receiver for the New York Jets. We met them at the hotel, got fresh, then headed out to the Peterson Museum. There was about 15 Southsiders in the party that night, having us some fun. Puffy and Biggie were both sitting on thrones and wearing black bebop hats, surrounded by buckets of bottles. They were doing it big by then. We had been in the party for about 15 minutes when my phone rang. "What up?" It was my people from Grape Street. "What up, big dog? We down here out front trying to get in." How many you got with you? Hold up. There's 9 of us. All right, hold tight. Let me see what I can do. I told one of the bad boy bodyguards we needed 9 more tickets, but he was only able to get us 6. When the 6 dudes from Grape Street came in, one of them came over and told me, them blood niggas are out there. They deep? I asked. Not as deep as us. I decided to go back outside to see if I could get the 3 other dudes from Grape Street who were still waiting outside. When I got down there, just like the homie stated, I saw DJ Quick, Theo, the Asian on-air radio personality that used to work for the radio station The Beat, and they were out there with about 8 other blood niggas that I recognized. Somebody must have told Puffy that we were in the building because he came over to where we were and whispered, "Man, the FBI is in the building. They've been following me ever since I've been out here. I don't want y'all catching my heat, so stand down." There was no way I was going to talk to him about anything serious after he told me that. Puffy handed me 2 bottles of Dom P and 1 bottle of Cristal and said, "Y'all have a good time." As Puffy started to turn and walk away, I motioned for Puffy to come in close and I told him, "Y'all be careful. Them blood niggas are in here." In particular, there were 2 broads from Death Row that were inside that party that should not have been in there. Their only purpose in that party was to set Puffy and Biggie up. I saw it coming, but the bad boy crew couldn't see it. Puffy told me that the FBI had been following them around, so I guess he thought they were going to be protected by them motherfuckers. After Puffy gave us the bottles, we went to one of the corners of the room and threw our own little party. Once we started burning that Cali weed, people began gravitating over to where we were. Janet Jackson, Aaliyah, all kinds of people came over to where we were because they could smell that weed. Ricky Bell from Belle Biv DeVoe followed us around the whole night like he was from Southside. We had a ball that night. Every superstar football player you can name was at that motherfucker. It was the baddest party I've ever been to in my life, and we were up in there looking fly. People couldn't look at us and tell we were Crips because we didn't dress like the stereotypical street thugs. I would buy expensive suits, crocodile shoes, all kinds of fly shit. I might fly to New York to have dinner, and on my way back to LA, stop in Cleveland to check on my money. Those black credit cards that celebrities carry cut off after you spend too much money. I know from hanging out with Eazy-E. His shit used to cut off. Meanwhile, I would have 30 to 40,000 cash in my pockets. My shit wasn't cutting off. And I'd have 2 to 3 million sitting at home in the closet. Back in the late 80s, early 90s, our crew used to be on the Sunset Strip having a ball damn near every night for 10 years straight. Life on the Strip was popping. The club scene, the Comedy Store, the Century Club on Sunday night, Paradise on Thursday. Britney Spears and them would be up in some of them spots. I believe that if the Kardashian sisters, Kim, Courtney, and Khloe, and Paris Hilton and them were on the Sunset Strip back in the day when we were balling, them bitches would have been with us because we knew how to ball. Bitches love gangsters. In fact, they're addicted. I'm not talking about gang bangers. I'm talking about gangsters. I would drink Remy Martin XO in the daytime and Louis XIII, which back then was $1,300 a bottle, at night. I had a connect that would bring me cases of it at a discount. I remember one day my wife drunk up my Louis and put some VSOP in the bottle. You're supposed to drink Louis XIII warm, so I poured a little out and put it in the microwave for 30 seconds so it would go down nice and smooth. After I warmed it up and started drinking it with my little pinky out, she said, "Nigga, you drinking VSOP." One thing I never did get involved with was trying to supply none of them celebrities that used to be on the Strip partying. You'd go to jail quick fucking with them. That Sunset shit would get your ass hot with the feds. They'd be up in those clubs. Plus, I was bigger than that. I was selling kilos. I didn't even touch shit. I'd go do the negotiations at the breakfast table, but I never touched shit once the negotiations were done. I'd wait on the money to come in. You couldn't even talk to me because my crew had me protected. Before long, the fire marshals came and closed the motherfucker down because there were too many people inside. The valet started bringing people their cars. We were still standing there waiting for our vehicles, and Biggie came up first. He saw us and rolled down his window. "Man, we at the Beverly Hilton. Y'all come up there with some of that California weed, big dog." Biggie was a cool brother, and he liked smoking that California orange weed. Then Puff came up. We gave each other dap, and he said, "Don't forget, tomorrow we're giving that barbecue at Aaron Spelling's house on Doheny Drive." Biggie pulled off first, then Puff pulled off right behind him and made a right turn. About 3 or 4 minutes later, somebody came running back in our direction, screaming, "They shot Biggie! They shot Biggie!" I didn't hear any shots because we were under the parking structure. Then my boy Uchi came running back up in there. "Yo, they just smoked Biggie." "What?" "Yeah, they just killed Biggie." Fuck. Biggie was dead 10 minutes later. Officers from LAPD came and started escorting people out of there. Not long after Biggie's killing, rumors started swirling that Southside had killed Biggie. That's when Puffy began distancing himself from us. He was likely scared to death, thinking we were going to go after him next. The big squeeze. A few days after the Biggie shooting, SUGE's boys, led by Sergeant Crooked Ass Reynolds, pulled my nephew Baby Lane over and said, "You motherfuckers done killed Biggie too, because they didn't pay you the money for Tupac." Reynolds had part of the story right. We hadn't been paid yet, but he was completely wrong about us killing Biggie. That was some bullshit. Why would Southside kill Biggie? We used to hang, smoke, and break bread with the nigga. The crooked cops from Compton, SUGE's boys, were the ones that started the rumors and put the idea in the heads of the police higher-ups downtown that Southside was responsible for killing Biggie, to distract and deflect the heat up off of their asses, because they know their side did that shit. They were cops, but they were trying to be Bloods at the same time, moonlighting as part of SUGE's hit squad. They didn't know what side of the fence they wanted to be on, so the dirty motherfuckers were playing both. It was a wickedly wise move on their part to make it look like it was me on both of them. If I was getting pressure, I could only imagine the pressure Suge and Puffy were getting. It made sense. With all of the attention on me, they wouldn't be looking at Puffy or Suge. They were like, "We got to get this off of us. Let's put it all on KEEFE." About a month after Biggie's killing, the police raided my house and impounded my SS Impala and alleged that it was the car used in the Biggie murder. There were reports that the vehicle used in the Biggie shooting was a dark-colored Impala, and I did have a dark-colored Impala, but I didn't even drive the thing. Every week when I would receive a shipment of kilos, I would rent another vehicle to keep the feds off of me. The night Biggie got killed, I was in a rental car. My Impala sat in my backyard. They did all kinds of forensic tests on my Impala, and it all came back clean. About 3 weeks later, the FBI raided a whole bunch of our houses and took all of our guns. Sergeant Reynolds' punk ass came to my house with the FBI and told my wife, "You know, you can get a $250,000 reward for information leading to Keefe D's arrest." Before he took off, he said, "Tell Keefe D he can turn himself into me." Nigga, so you can blow my head off? I would never turn myself into that punk motherfucker. My problems with Sergeant Reynolds went all the way back to when I got out of Tracy in 1990. My brother had been gunned down in the streets by some Bloods. January 23rd, 1990 is when we buried him. That night, after the funeral, we went to a spot called the Red Onion to celebrate his life. Sergeant Reynolds was in the club drinking. He was a cop, so he didn't have any business in there dealing with gangsters. Reynolds had a few broads that he was buying drinks for. Then the broad that he had eyes for ended up leaving the club with Keefe D that night. I could sense the jealousy he had in his heart from that night on. It just so happened that he ended up being a player on SUGE's team. SUGE bought Reynolds a red Acura Legend. In fact, SUGE bought all the police he had working for him red cars. I had zero trust in dealing with Compton police in general, and definitely not Sergeant Reynolds. During this chaotic period, on top of everything else that was going on, my wife's father died. So we went to Austin, Texas to bury him. Her family still had their 40 acres and a mule. They had a church on their property and everything. While the funeral was going on, my Colombian boy called me. "I have the chickens ready." I arranged to have one of my lieutenants, an older gentleman named Cy, to go pick them up. I stayed in Texas for a few more days. Then on Tuesday morning, the Colombian called again. "Where you at?" "I'm still out here in Texas." "Come on home and take care of your business. All right, I'll be there tomorrow. I flew home the next day and made plans to dispatch the kilos. I was going to send my boy Feet, who was positioned in another city, 60 keys, and my brother, 75 keys. Everybody had the same instructions to let me know when the kilos arrived at their destination. I didn't have anyone reliable to deliver Feet's kilos, so he suggested, my uncle will take them. Cool. I gave Feet's uncle the 60 kilos to transport, but the nigga didn't leave immediately with them. Everybody else called back by Thursday, telling me that they had landed. I kept calling Feet, but he didn't answer. I had my boy Bubble Up pass by Feet's house, and he called to tell me, man, that mobile home is still in the driveway. We had removed the inside of the mobile home and taped the kilos inside. You bullshitting. I swear, Bubble Up responded. The next evening, about 6 p.m., Feet called me. Man, they done pulled over the mobile home. Where y'all at? Central Ave and the 91 freeway. I jumped in my ride and drove by Central and the 91. As I was about to exit the freeway, I could see that Compton PD and DEA agents had the mobile home pulled over to the side of the road. Come to find out, it was Compton Police Sergeant Reynolds who had pulled over the kilos. Money wasn't an issue for me before they busted my 60 kilos. But the police were weakening us by hitting us from all sides. We were fighting against a double-edged sword. The battle with the street niggas was on and expected. But more devastating was the dirty cops we were up against. The police were taking our shit, so Puffy needed to bring the money. We were still waiting to get our paycheck. That's when I sent Puffy a few messages through people that could get to the nigga. Nigga, send us 10,000. We need guns. The police are crippling us by taking our shit. The big squeeze was on. In 2007, I ran into Puffy's former stylist and Howard University roommate, D-Mac. He told me that Puffy's homeboy, Zip, got the money from Puffy that he was supposed to pay us. Allegedly, that's how Zip bought the New York nightclub he owned and started his clothing line. We'll never know, since dead men tell no tales. What I do know is we never got a dime from the nigga Puffy. Fucking around with him turned me into adversaries with SUGE and the crooked cops he had on his team, which cost me severely financially. I was on the run for 4 months after they raided my house on the Biggie murder investigation when I received a call from my attorney, Edie Fowle. I just talked to Detectives Poole and Hooper from LAPD. They say they aren't going to arrest you. They just want to talk to you, Edie said. Yeah? Edie is a smart man, so I'm sure he could hear the hesitation in my voice when I responded. He reassured me. They gave me their word that they just want to talk. All right, cool. Set it up then. Edie and I met them down at Parker Center, the LAPD headquarters at the time. Edie schooled me before we went into the room. Don't say anything. Just let them talk. Give me the signal when you're ready to leave. They took me upstairs and started questioning me. As agents from the FBI and LAPD continued to talk, I realized all of what they were saying had to have come from one person, C-Ray. They already knew about how Puffy and I met. They knew the Zip connection. They knew who was in the car in Vegas and where everybody was sitting in the car. Everything. I know for a fact C-Ray had to give them that information because he was the only person that got arrested on the Biggie murder raids that knew our private business like that. All of the other people that were picked up as part of the Biggie raids were gangbangers that I wouldn't allow around me like that. So they couldn't know that type of information. I happened to be in Chicago when they raided our houses on the Biggie raids. When I finally got back from Chicago, I asked C-Ray, "What they ask you about?" "Man, they was asking about that TUPAC and that Biggie stuff." "Nigga, you sure wasn't there. You don't know nothing, do you?" "Nah," was his response. As the agents continued talking, I was steady thinking, that son of a bitch. That fucked me up because C-Ray is from my generation and was my right-hand man. Back then, I would have died for that dude because he was my number one moneymaker. We came up from scratch together, and he sold me out. I didn't know the brother was so fucking weak. Learning that C-Ray flipped on me broke my heart and pissed me the fuck off at the same time. First, I found out from Boss Man that C-Ray was trying to get in contact with SUGE, talking about he wasn't involved in the TUPAC shooting. If he tried to communicate with the other side and tell them he wasn't involved to protect his ass, I could only imagine all the shit he went in there and said to the police. It soon became apparent, not just to me, but to others in the hood, that C-Ray was snitching. On top of that, he had been showing some disloyalty. As a result, at least 4 different times, youngsters from the hood tried to smoke his ass. One day, they shot his car up no less than 40 times. No one would have ever known that Southside did that shit either, especially after his neighbor got shot 35 times. It would have looked like it was a hit from the other side. I don't know how he got up out of there alive. He called me after that and asked, "KEEFE D, you sick the little homies on me?" "Nah, I ain't sick the homies on you. You brought that on yourself." When I heard the information the police already had, I made my rehearsed hand signal to Edie, which meant it was time to get me the fuck up out of there. Edie cut the interview. "I have other engagements, gentlemen. Sorry, but we have to go." On my way out the door, LAPD Detective Poole said, "You think you were hiding from us? We knew where you were the whole time. We're going to take these pictures to New York, and if they identify you as the killer, we're coming to get your ass." Cool. I'm not worried about that because I know I ain't doing motherfucking thing. I ain't did shit. When Detective Poole said that they knew where I was the whole time is the moment I realized they had to have tapped my cousin Speedo's phone. They had chased me out of the frying pan into the fire. Every month while I was locked up, the FBI came in and swept me behind that TUPAC shit. They made my time miserable. I couldn't even sleep and do my time good. One time when they came to visit me, the FBI agent said, "That hit wasn't for TUPAC. That hit was for SUGE from Boss Man." They had been doing some research. The punk-ass Las Vegas cops didn't know shit. I ran circles around them, but the FBI knew everything. They were missing a few pieces of the puzzle. One thing about the FBI, they have their shit together. The feds don't come after you unless they have your ass. The dumbest mistake President Donald Trump can make is to go and testify before the special counsel investigation led by Robert Mueller. I know Trump is going to lie because that's what Trump does. It's like he's not capable of telling the truth. He can't testify with the feds like that. They're going to get his ass. It might take a year or two, but they're going to get him. When I was locked up in Stafford, I was in there with Bruce McNoll, the former owner of the National Hockey League's LA Kings. He was the guy that used a fake coin collection as collateral for his purchase of the LA Kings, and the feds took him down for that. Every 18 months in the Fed system, as long as you don't get in trouble, you can request a transfer, and they will move you down to lower levels. I made a request and got transferred to Nellis Prison Camp, which is the prime spot for all the feds. I was in there with a Mormon from Utah that owned the BFI Waste Company. I ran into Paul Jensen, the guy who owned banks in Texas, and Charles Keating, who also owned banks and Lincoln Savings and Loan. All those dudes were tied in with George Bush, our 43rd president. I remember the night the 2004 presidential election went down, and some news media announced that Al Gore was projected to be the winner. The next morning when we woke up, they declared George Bush the winner. Paul Jensen was in there mad because Bush was his homeboy, and he felt Bush should have been in jail with them. My time in there with them is what made me realize that unless you're at the Pablo Escobar level, drug dealers are some broke motherfuckers compared to them other dudes. I was locked up with billionaires, serious heavyweights. Their telemarketers have millions of dollars. In the feds, since it's regional, Crips and Bloods stick together. And since I had juice with the whole Cali card, all those rich guys would come to me for protection. I ended up serving 5.5 years over that questionable 7-second phone call. That was a stressful time for me that took years off my life, with them coming to visit me monthly talking about I'm a serial killer. When I was locked up, Puffy didn't come through and help me with anything, not even a pair of Sean John socks or underwear. Once I served my 5.5-year bid in the feds, I came out looking for that nigga. I heard that Puffy sent a dude from the Harlem 30s Sean John clothes every season. But I see he didn't call them niggas when SUGE was on his ass. When he needed serious help, he called me. Then after all the shit went down, he left me out there to fend for myself. Cold world. Their initial questions were primarily about Biggie's murder. They were saying, y'all killed Biggie too, because they didn't pay you the money for TUPAC. It appeared the Biggie case was the only one they were really trying to solve, because Biggie's mother had the LAPD tied up in a big-time wrongful death lawsuit. So they thundered down on me hard trying to solve that case in order to get out of that lawsuit. They thought we had hit Biggie too. They were coming at me so hard on the Biggie issue that at one point I paused and silently asked myself, did we kill Biggie? That shit only lasted for a second because I knew Biggie wasn't us. I'm telling you, we didn't have nothing to do with Biggie. That wasn't us. Go get the bitch and she'll tell you everything you need to know about the Biggie killing. They seemed to understand and respect where I was coming from. I can only tell you what the fuck we did. Startled, one of them responded, wait, what do you mean? Clearly shocked and surprised by my words, because they were not used to me cooperating with them at all, I went ahead and started answering their questions about the events leading up to TUPAC getting shot. The feds had followed me around for 15 years. It was finally time to get the shit off my chest and over with. Everybody else from my neighborhood was getting off on the shit. Why not get off on my own shit? I sang because they promised I would not be prosecuted. I thought they were lying to me, but they kept their word and stopped the indictment, tore up the whole case. Nobody went to jail. They let my cousins, boss man, and some other heavyweights go. They would have taken us all down. The feds have a conviction rate of 98%. The feds don't come unless they have your ass. Shit. They let me go on a case that carried the death sentence. And when you're fucking with the feds, you die in their electric chair within 5 years. My ass was fried, and everybody else. All 48 people were gonna be fried. They don't play downtown. That's the way they operate. To add insult to injury and make matters way worse, can you imagine how I felt when my son came home one day and told me, yo, Dad, they have a recording of your voice on the internet. You bullshitting. Get the fuck out of here. There ain't no recordings of me out there. If you say so. He pulled out a laptop, and after a minute or so, he said, well, listen to this shit then. Sure enough, one of the agents, Greg Kading, apparently sat there with a tape recorder in his pocket, talking about he wasn't recording and recorded the proffer session. I know for a fact that I didn't sign anything or give permission for anyone to record the meeting. Then he took the recording when he was no longer working with the LAPD and profited off of it by using the recording as part of news stories he did with different news and entertainment companies, all while putting my life on the line. That's some crooked shit. No matter how you slice it, that shit was dirty. They've been doing me wrong for a long time. The first question I usually get from people is, how is it that you're not in jail? I've explained the deal that kept my ass out of jail, but I've yet to hear anyone press Greg Kading's ass on how he obtained the infamous KEEFE D tapes that was featured in the LA Weekly newspaper back in 2011, and has been featured in a few TV documentaries and specials on the topic of who shot Tupac and Biggie. The introduction to the LA Weekly article reads, a 3-hour recording of KEEFE D's admissions, lifted from LAPD archives by ex-detective Greg Kading. Not sure about you, but where I come from, the word lifted means to steal something. Point blank, period. Even the Merriam-Webster dictionary agrees that lifted means to steal. Former detective Greg Kading admitted to secretly recording me during an investigation while he was an employee of the Los Angeles Police Department. Then he takes the recording and releases it to the public for his personal financial gain, and nobody checks his ass for it? What Greg Kading did was blatantly unethical. And if it's not illegal, the shit definitely should be. Releasing the tape of our confidential session, which I never agreed to be recorded in the first place, jeopardized my life and also put my family's life in jeopardy. Kading is still out here profiting from his books, interviews, contributing to documentaries, executive producing docuseries, and making movies. Shit. Professionals who work in education, hospitals, lawyers, and priests all have standards that protect people's sensitive information from being released to the public. but rogue cops can publish confidential details with impunity? That's some bullshit. Law enforcement officials often complain about the difficulty they have in solving cases in Black and brown communities because no one wants to talk to the police, usually out of fear that they will be labeled a snitch and the target of retaliation. In my situation, I spoke to the police, not giving a fuck about what people would say because I know the real, and they offered me a sweeter deal than Sammy the Bull Gravano. My point is, with people in the hood already harboring feelings of distrust against law enforcement, when they learn about what a former detective did with my confidential communication and put my family and me in harm's way like that, it's going to make things even worse. My saving grace is the shit I talked about in the session was the shit that I did. Not one person went to jail behind any of the shit I said in my interview. In fact, I saved a lot of motherfuckers from going to jail for extremely long sentences with my cooperation. They were poised to take down 48 different people, some with life sentences. I think about the harm that would have done to the families, the kids and grandkids, the community, and it allows me to rest a little more peacefully at night. It kills me on the inside to know that I told them anything. I'm a soldier. I was the face of the game. I was one of the first guys in Compton to do this shit at that level. Some days, I wish I would have gone on in and took it like the soldier that I am. I did something that wasn't me. Greg Kading. Kading, you're a snake. You seriously jeopardized the lives and safety of myself and my family so you could be seen as the super cop who solved the Tupac and Biggie murders? You ain't did shit, bitch. If it wasn't for the FBI and the U.S. attorney they sicked on my ass, I wouldn't have told you a motherfucking thing with your weak ass shit. You wasn't nothing but a little LAPD detective. If truth is your defense, then you should have told the whole truth. Instead, you just put my name and identity out in the public and concealed the identities of all the other motherfuckers underneath me that flipped. You used them in order to get to me. I've been to the federal prison system, so I know all the codes and everything about the system. Anyone who has been to the feds knows there are sentencing guidelines, and if you have a federal case, you have to be sentenced under those guidelines. I received a 70-month sentence from a fucking 7-second phone call based on the sentencing guidelines. They gave me 10 months per second. They didn't catch me with anything, just an ambiguous phone call, and I did 70 months. If you get caught, do your fucking time, homie. I got caught and did mine. When I reviewed the paperwork surrounding my case from the Freedom of Information Act, it fucked me up. Most of the names and sensitive information have been redacted, but it's easy for me to know who and what they're talking about because I was there. The shit happened to me. The paperwork confirmed what I instinctively already knew. Some of those closest to me had flipped on me and put me in a fucked up predicament. The shit ain't right. A lot of the dudes I thought were true to this game weren't true at all. It seems like they envied me and wanted to take my place. I was good to everybody, and I hate that they put me in a mix like that. Put all that shit on me. Here are some of the major perpetrators, guys who got caught with way worse shit than me. And based on the sentencing guidelines, they should have been sentenced to considerable prison time. Take a look at the sentencing table and controlled substance schedules and decide for yourself.